You ever notice how people talk about greatness? Oh, they love to talk. They romanticize it. They look up at the statues, read the stories, and dream of being remembered. But they don't tell you what it takes. Oh no. No one ever tells you about the blood, the sweat, the loneliness. See, people love legends, but they hate the process. They admire the warrior, but they shun the war. They crave the power, but they fear the sacrifice. And that right there, is why there are so few of them. Because most people, they want the glory without the pain, the reward without the struggle. They want to be remembered, but they don't want to be tested. But you're different, aren't you? I can see it in your eyes. That little flicker of defiance, that hunger gnawing at you from the inside. Oh, you know it, don't you? You felt it, that feeling that you don't belong. That feeling that this world, this scripted, controlled, predictable world, isn't enough for you. That's because you were never meant to fit in. Legends are not born in comfort. They are not made in safety. They are forged in the fires of isolation. Let me tell you a little secret. The moment you decide to step away from the crowd, the moment you choose to walk your own path, the world will turn against you. You will hear the laughter, the mockery, the doubts whispered behind your back. They will call you a fool, a dreamer, a failure. And you know why? Because you remind them of everything they're too afraid to be. Oh, people love to preach about courage, but the truth is, they fear the brave. They fear the one who dares to stand alone, because deep down they know they could have been more. They could have reached higher, but they chose comfort. And nothing terrifies them more than someone who refuses to make the same choice. So they will try to break you. They will test you. They will push you to your limits, hoping, praying that you give up, that you fall back in line, that you become just like them. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people, they do give up. They reach the edge, they stare into the abyss, and they turn back. They run to the warmth of the crowd, to the safety of mediocrity. But a few, just a few, keep walking. And those few, they change the world. You see, there's a cost to this path, a price that must be paid. You will lose people, friends, family, lovers, not because you push them away, but because they won't understand. They won't see what you see. And oh, that hurts, doesn't it? The ones you thought would stand beside you, they're the first to disappear. They look at you like you're insane, like you've lost yourself. But the truth? You've simply found yourself. And that is something most people will never do. They will spend their entire lives running from themselves, drowning in distractions, hiding behind routines, behind excuses, behind the comforting lie that they are happy. But you had the courage to break free, and that means you will walk alone. At first, it will feel like a curse. The silence, the solitude, the weight of carrying your own dreams with no one to share them with. But let me tell you something. There is power in that solitude, because when the noise is gone, you hear the truth, your fears, your doubts, and you face them. You do not run, you do not hide, you conquer them. And when you emerge, you are no longer a dreamer. You are no longer a fool chasing a fantasy. You are unstoppable. You ever wonder when it happens? That moment, the moment you stop being just another name and start becoming something more. It's not when you win. It's not when you make it to the top. No, it happens in the darkness. It happens when you're beaten down, when the world has thrown everything at you, when your own mind screams at you to quit, and you stand back up. That's the moment, not when they praise you, not when they cheer your name, but when you look in the mirror, bloodied, bruised, but undefeated, and you smile, because you know they can't break you. You know they can't stop you. You know that you are no longer just another person. You are a force, and that is when the world starts to fear you. Because a man who has conquered himself, he has no limits. Most people think the battle is against the world, against society, against the doubters, the haters, the ones who laugh behind your back. But that's not the real war. The real war? It's against you, because no matter how many people doubt you, their voices will never be louder than your own. That little voice in your head, the one that whispers, maybe they're right. The one that reminds you of every failure, every weakness, every reason why you shouldn't try. That voice is your greatest enemy. And the world? Oh, the world loves that voice. It feeds it. It nurtures it. It keeps you weak, keeps you obedient, because a person at war with themselves is easy to control. Think about it. Why do you think they fill your head with fear? Why do you think they sell you distractions, endless entertainment, meaningless arguments, cheap pleasures to keep you busy, but never fulfilled? Because if you ever silenced the noise, if you ever truly faced yourself, you would be unstoppable. But that's a road very few walk, because it's brutal. You will face everything you hate about yourself. Your failures, your regrets, your insecurities. You will have to look them in the eye, one by one, and own them. Not run, not hide. Own them, because once you do, once you accept your flaws, your darkness, they lose their power. And that is when you become dangerous. Let me tell you something most people will never admit. There will be a moment where you are seconds away from breaking, a moment where the weight of it all is too much, where your mind screams at you to quit. What's the point? It will say. You're wasting your time. It will never work. You are not enough. And oh, that moment, it will feel like hell. Your body will be exhausted. Your heart will be shattered. Your soul will feel empty. And most people, that's when they stop. That's when they run back to the crowd, back to safety, back to a life of quiet regret. But the few who keep going, who push through that breaking point, who refuse to let the pain win, they become something else, something beyond human. Because once you break through that wall, you don't fear pain anymore. You don't fear failure. You don't fear anything. And a man with no fear, he is a nightmare to this world, and that's when things change. Oh, the world will try to pretend it doesn't see you. At first, it will ignore you, pretend you don't exist. But then it will feel your presence. People will talk. Some will hate. Some will admire. Some will fear. Because you did what they couldn't. You walked alone. And in doing so, you became something greater. A force. A legend. A reminder that the world never belonged to the weak, the obedient, the ones who did what they were told. No. It belonged to the ones who dared to be different, who dared to defy, who dared to walk alone. And now, it belongs to you. Most people think the hardest part is the beginning, taking that first step, breaking away from the crowd, stepping into the unknown. They're wrong. The hardest part is when you're too far to turn back, but you still can't see the end. When the silence is deafening, when the world doesn't care, when your hands are bloodied from clawing your way up, but the mountain stretches on, higher and higher, mocking you. That's when most people collapse, because they thought pain was temporary. They thought struggle was a phase. They thought if they pushed hard enough, fast enough, they'd arrive. But there is no arrival. There is no finish line. And that's the truth no one wants to hear. See, the weak need an endpoint. They need the promise of a reward, a destination, a fairy tale ending. Just work hard for a little while, and then you can rest. But legends, they don't stop. They don't slow down, because they know the moment they do, they start dying. That's what separates the few from the many. The many chase comfort. The few become the storm. They embrace the abyss. They stop searching for the light at the end of the tunnel and realize they are the light. And the moment you understand that, the moment you accept that your path is one of endless war, endless hunger, endless growth, that's the moment you stop being human That's the moment you become something else, something terrifying, something unstoppable. Oh, they don't tell you about this part, do they? How lonely it gets at the top, how the air gets thinner, how the silence stretches on, how the ones who said they'd be there never make it. Because when you climb high enough, there is no one left, no one to guide you, no one to hold your hand, no one to pat you on the back and say, you did it. And that's where most people fail, because they thought the journey was about proving something to others. They thought the applause, the admiration, the validation would make it all worth it. But when they reach the peak and find nothing but silence, they break because they never understood. This was never about them. This was never about being liked, being accepted, being praised. This was about you, your war, your purpose. And if you can stand there, alone at the top, and still have the fire inside you, then you don't need them. You never did. Because kings don't ask for permission. They take their throne. And once you do, the world doesn't ignore you anymore. You know what's funny? The same people who doubted you, they start to change their tune. At first, they laughed. They mocked you. They whispered behind your back, said you were crazy, delusional, chasing something you'd never reach. Then you got quiet. You stopped explaining yourself, stopped seeking approval, stopped wasting your breath on people who were never going to understand. And that scared them. Because silence, that's the sound of power. That's the sound of someone who doesn't need validation anymore. Someone who isn't looking for permission. Someone who has already decided. And when the results come, oh, suddenly, they remember you. They act like they were always on your side. They say they knew you had it in you. They want to be around you, want to be seen with you, want to soak up the energy of someone who did what they couldn't. But you remember every doubt, every laugh, every time they turned their backs. And you don't need revenge, because your success is the revenge. Your silence is the victory. And now they have to live with the fact that they will never be you, that they will never have what you have. Because when they had the chance to walk with you, they chose to stand still. Most stories end here, don't they? The rise to power, the proof of doubters, the moment the world finally sees you. But this isn't a story. This is your life, and there is no ending, because the fire doesn't go out. The hunger doesn't fade. The war never stops. The question isn't, can you do it? You already know the answer. The question is, now that you have the power, what will you do with it? Because legends don't rest. They don't sit back and enjoy the view. They find the next mountain, the next war, the next battle worth bleeding for. And they start again, because they were never in it for the destination. They were in it for the fight. And you were never meant to be one of them. You were meant to be more. So stand up, keep walking, and make the world remember your name, because only those who dare to walk alone become legends.